Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the 19th Tuesday evening webinar of AbScent. If you don't know me yet, my name is Chrissi Kelly. I am the founder of AbScent. It's my great pleasure this evening to have with me Mark Bradley of PeopleWith, which is an app to track symptoms. We are in conversation with him because AbScent wants to work together with PeopleWith to find a way of helping patients track their symptoms. And we'll be telling you a little bit more about that in the course of the evening. Also with us tonight, we have Sarah Oakley. Sarah is our new executive director, and we are so pleased to have her with us. She joined us in August or July, Sarah?
End of July, yeah.
End of July. Well, it's been quite a romp.
Sure.
The last 7 months, we've broken her in. I hope we haven't broken her. And also with us tonight, we have Dr. Jane Parker, who is seen often in these webinars. Jane is my research partner at the University of Reading, where we are learning more about parosmia. And Jane will be speaking with Mark a little bit about how we might use the information that patients who use this app what we find out from that. So without further ado, Mark, I'd like to hand it over to you, and maybe you could give us in bite-sized chunks a little bit about PeopleWith, why it's a good idea, how it works, and what you think it can do to broaden our understanding of what's happening with patients who have lost their sense of smell.
Thanks very much, first of all, Chrissi, for inviting me to come in and speak tonight and give me this opportunity of sharing this fantastic resource. The PeopleWith is actually a platform of which the app is the interface for the patient, but it's much bigger than the app, but we'll talk about that more. If, for example, Chrissi, you had the same profile of Jane and you had parosmia and you were trying something that was effective for you, how would Jane know if she didn't know Chrissi Kelly? So what we're effectively hoping to deliver for people with parosmia is that if we can understand more about the trends of how it happens and the sensations that these people have and the things that people are doing, whether it be supplements, whether it be lifestyle, whether it be treatments, whatever the case may be, but if we can consolidate all of that information and uncover these trends, we will then share it back to AbScent so that they can then share it with their followers to enable more and more people of the same profile to get a better outcome and manage their condition better.
Right. Okay. I'm just going to pause right there and just to let anybody know who's in the audience, if you have questions about this app and about the research that we are doing, please put your questions in the Q&A panel, which you'll find at the bottom. And we will be dipping into those questions throughout the evening. Please don't use the chat bar. We don't use that in these kind of sessions. So just if you've got questions about what we're talking about now, about the research and about the app, do please put them in the Q&A. Right. Mark, let me ask you something. You've mentioned medications, but of course, for people who've lost their sense of smell, there are not many interventions that are available. And so that's not really the focus of what, that's not the sort of thing that a person who comes from AbScent would necessarily be putting into the app. But of course, we have lots of other bits of data or bits of information that people would want to track, such as fluctuations in their sense of smell, or let's say the onset of parosmia and the severity of parosmia. So could you, as an example, could you tell us a little bit about if I was a person who wanted to track my fluctuations, what would I actually do, and what would that look like, and what would and how would it be represented if I wanted to sort of keep a diary of the progress of my smell loss over several months?
Well, it's quite simple. Whenever you download the application, there's a piece in there which is highlighted as symptoms. And whenever you go in and open up the section with symptoms, you just start typing in parosmia, and then you just select it from the drop down so it comes in for you whenever you start typing. Whenever you select it, it benchmarks your symptom at a score of 50 out of 100. But if parosmia is not evident at that point of time, so it's not affecting you at that point of time, you can slide that back to 0. And whenever it then becomes evident, you can then bring it up to a score as into what you would regard it as reflecting the level of how bad it was with respect to previous experiences that you have had with it. So if you're talking about the fluctuations, whenever your sense of smell maybe improves again, you can then bring it back slightly. And then if your sense of smell improves, as in it's not impaired at all, you can bring that score back to 0 again. So it can capture the transitional period between when it becomes at its worst, when it improves, and when it disappears, and how long it lasts. So every time that you have an episode of that, all you have to do is go in and check it, open it out, and it creates a chart of all of the trend lines with respect to when you're affected most and how often.
And do most of the people that use this app check in daily?
Well, it depends. Different conditions. Whenever you talk about people with, this is people with whatever, by the way. So in this case, obviously, we're talking about parosmia, but we're tracking Parkinson's. We're not tracking. We're supporting people to track Parkinson's. We're supporting people to track symptoms of Crohn's, colitis, arthritis, prostate problems, menopause. We have a lot of long COVID sufferers on there at the minute, which is actually quite relevant because we're seeing a lot of patients with long COVID now presenting also with parosmia.
Right.
So whenever you say that this helps the patient, it captures all of their intelligence against all of their symptoms in order to provide them with a holistic view of what their entire health looks like.
Right. Fascinating. And maybe you could explain to people a little bit about, I mean, I know everyone's worried about the privacy, the strength of the privacy, their personal data, and so on. Could you help people understand a little bit about how the data is anonymized and how they are still able to see it in their phone? So I don't quite understand that. Maybe you could explain that in detail.
Right. So whenever you download an application, you have to have obviously an account with the App Store or alternatively Google Play, which enables you to give evidence that you're that individual. All right. So whenever you download the application, you're downloading it through the App Store or Google Play. Whenever you come into the system, you don't have to put your name in this system if you don't want to. We don't access your personal details. We don't know your personal details. They're only captured for your purpose as an owner of the detail if you want to share that with your doctor. But
Right.
if the truth, we don't, whenever we are talking about capturing trends, we don't need to know your name. We don't need to know where you're from in order to capture the trends. We just want to know how your health has been affected with respect to a progression or a presentation of something that's impairing you.
Right. Okay.
None of, just to reassure, none of your data is taken from this by PeopleWith, nor is it accessed. We can't access it, and nor is it shared. And no data will ever be available that will enable the personalization of anybody or the personal identification of anybody.
Right. But the last time that we spoke, you did describe very, very well this idea that by tracking symptoms, you can build up, using your logarithms, you can build up a general picture of the various types of person, what their background health is, and how they might be affected by these various illnesses. So perhaps you could explain a little bit about that and how that works.
Right. So whenever you're putting in your information, there's a number of factors influence how you present symptoms, and there's a number of factors then influence how you react to treatments as a result of your symptom presentation. So you will capture information like age, race, ethnicity, gender, comorbid condition, condition severity, concomitant medications, other medications that you're taking for other conditions. And all of these factors will influence your reaction to particular treatments and can cause side effects and so on and so forth. But whenever you talk about research processes that are carried out, the people that are included in research have a particular age, will have a particular race, will have a particular ethnicity. And in the majority, in a lot of cases, females can be kept to a minimum within these studies. But yet, whenever we go out to represent and look after these patients are females as well as race, as well as different ethnicities, as well as different ages. So, for example, what I give to you, Chrissi, as a young lady, in comparison what you would give to me, you can't expect the same result from that treatment. We can, and what this opportunity allows us to understand what them variances are and build the data set against all of them variables in order to understand what will work better for each of the profiles.
Right, right. Okay, let's take a couple of questions. Sarah, what do we have?
Yeah, great. So first question is, do you have to be invited to report on a condition, or can you just download it and get started?
You can just download it and get started, because we don't know what anybody's condition is. We don't know what their symptoms are. We don't know what they want to share or record or capture themselves. And Chrissi asked the question earlier about whether people want to do this every day. You don't have to do this every day. You know, you can do it. You know, if you talk about somebody with Crohn's or colitis, they may have an inflammation where their symptoms are a wee bit more aggressive at certain points of time throughout a year. But we're seeing that these patients are coming in and tracking them symptoms when they need to. And then whenever they improve again, you can see them coming off, and then you mightn't see them for a couple of weeks and then they come back in again. And that's just the cycle of symptoms. And this is, it's up to people to just download this themselves, come in and put in whatever information. This is for you. This is not for us. This is for you, so that you can create transparency of information to enable your doctors to make better informed decisions. And what we're finding, a lot of people coming back to us now, they have been on treatments for a long time and realize that the treatment is not having any effect on the symptom, and they're able to take that information now back to their doctor where they previously possibly wouldn't have done.
Mm-hmm.
Right, thank you. And can I just ask you a question that came up the very first time that you and I met on Zoom, which is, what happens if someone goes and wants to put in a symptom that you don't have? So what happens next in that situation? I know many people listening here will be wondering whether parosmia is in there. Yes, it is. Phantosmia, is that in there? Yes, it is. But you know, maybe fluctuations in smell dysfunction has not yet made it in. So in a case like that, where this might be something that you have not seen yet, what is the what happens when someone wants to propose a new symptom?
Whenever they go in and they start typing, obviously the symptom will be evident there or not evident there, whatever the case may be. But whenever they type it in and it's not evident, there's a little note comes in underneath to say that this symptom is not evident, and that they can hit this button and then they can add in that symptom. That symptom then goes to our medical team, who review the symptom, and they then make a decision as to whether they put it in or not, because some people might think something's a symptom. you know, and we will then maybe make a recommendation that this could be the way to go. Do you know what I mean? So, for example, paresthesia is tingling. Do you know what I mean? But somebody might notice paresthesia, somebody else might notice tingling, somebody else. So you have different communications in different areas and different locations as into what a symptom is. All right. But we review it and we add it accordingly or not.
Right. Okay. A couple of more questions, and then I'd like to talk about the AbScent Network, which is our new patient platform, and what we would like to achieve there with research and our various research projects. And then I'd like to bring in Jane. So before we do that, are there any more questions, Sarah, or do you think we've answered?
There is a question here about the first trends of sudden anosmia from COVID. Is that something that you've already started to see? Do you have that kind of information yet, Mark?
I can't say that because I would have to go into the data and I'd have to get the team to review that, but I am aware that that is something that is currently being tracked, but how much data that we have on that at this point in time, I can't say, but I'd be happy enough to share that once I interrogate the data.
Right, thank you.
Great. Okay.
Can I just say there, everyone, this is about everybody working together in order for everyone to get better experiences. And you know, my background's nursing. I didn't say that at the start, but my background's nursing, and then I worked in the life science industry, and it's my 30 years of experience trying to support patients, first of all, in the coalface hands-on, but then through the life science industry by working with doctors to educate them on the positioning of treatments and so on and so forth. But effectively, this is all about the patient. This is about people with particular abnormalities or people with impairments or symptoms that impair them. It's all about everybody sharing an experience so that everybody can get better treatment outcomes if treatments are what is positioned.
Obviously, for doctors to be able to change the way they advise patients, there needs to be an evidence base. So in this case, they would take the information that you have gleaned from your data set and say, this looks promising, and then do a proper controlled study on that, so that then there can be proper evidence base for it, you know, a study that can be written and peer reviewed and published. Because you can't just query the data and then make that leap to this is a promising therapy, or am I incorrect in that?
No, you can't do that. But what you're actually doing is you are creating the evidence. Do you know what I mean? This is a creation of evidence, albeit real world evidence.
Right.
But Chrissi, if you wait for every piece of intelligence to be researched in the format that you've just said, that you're going to be waiting a long time, because to sign up for research, to get informed consent on research and so on and so forth, it's an elongated process. It takes time, it takes money. And
Right.
you know, we're not going to be informing anybody as into taking treatments. That's not what we're about. We're about capturing the evidence and sharing that evidence to enable those people with the right expertise to make the decision as into what they want to do with the evidence.
Right. Okay, let me thank you, Mark. Thank you for that. Let me turn things over to Sarah now for a moment. And Sarah, maybe you could talk to the audience a little bit about the new AbScent network and how that's going to work, how it's different from Facebook, and what we're hoping to achieve for the charity by having this this new arena in which we can interact with patients, we can and talk to them about research and all the other things that we think are so important.
Well, the network is was launched last week, and it's something that we're really excited about, and we feel it chimes really well with the kind of support that Mark and his team are offering with PeopleWith. It's about using the online technology to really connect people and to find patterns and share experience. So with the network, we do that by connecting people based on their geography or their condition. So maybe the cause of your anosmia or your smell disorder will help you find other people who are having the same sort of experience. And then you can share the things that are working for you, the kind of patterns that you're experiencing, and just get a bit of moral support there. We do know from the guidelines that have been provided by Doctors for Treatment that this peer support is a really important part of helping people to manage their condition. So the network is all about providing that sort of support. But what it also allows us to do is to get more deeply involved with smaller groups who want to take part in research projects. So, for example, PeopleWith is our very first research project on the network there. We've set up a group, and from there we can encourage people to download the app and get involved. We're not telling you what to say or giving you any guidance. That would kind of defeat the object of PeopleWith, but we can certainly answer any questions that you've got coming up, and it's very helpful for people who are all using the app to be able to say, oh, I found this, and did you find that, and what did you put for? So it's just a way to connect with people who are experiencing the same things that you at any one time. We're also able to offer some courses on the network as well, which is a new step forward for AbScent. Again, it's about bringing a group of people together and taking them through a process, through a program that will help them to understand all the different aspects of whatever the topic is. So our first one is a smell training masterclass. So to get involved with that, to understand the experience of other people, to be able to ask the questions that other people will be asking as well. So it gives us so much flexibility about the way that we can connect people, whether you're in the United States or the United Kingdom, and everywhere in between. So we hope that people really enjoy taking part in that and get as much from it as they want to.
And actually that brings to mind, Sarah, that we hope that people will track whether they are smell training. It's an intervention. It's not a treatment, but it's a sort of an intervention that people can do at home. So that would be an interesting one. Good. Turning to Jane now. For those of you who don't know, Jane and I have been working together closely on the subject of parosmia. We've been trying to understand more about this condition and why it is that some people, or that many people who have parosmia, seem to have certain kinds of perceptions in common. Jane, thinking about what the PeopleWith app could capture, what kind of scope do you see? Do you see that might change the kind of research that we're doing?
What it's going to generate is preliminary data, preliminary evidence on which we can base hypotheses, and that's what's important for us as researchers, is to have some evidence that we can use going forward to do the more formal studies and see what we can find out. I think one of the things that's important that will come out of the app is answers to questions that people keep asking us. They keep asking, am I going to recover? How long is it going to take? Does it depend on my emotional state? I find that if I'm stressed, it seems to be worse. And all these questions at the moment we can't answer. But if we've got data from the app, and if we get it over a long enough time period, I think that's going to be critical to answer some of these questions, because we know that recovery can take a long time. So then we can start to answer the questions that everybody is asking. You're asking the same sort of questions, and at the moment we can't answer. And this is a very convenient way of tracking some of those, tracking the data, tracking events tracking, perhaps when you're feeling more stressed or when you're more emotional or, you know, anxious, alongside some of these other parosmia, phantosmia, anosmia, and we can see if there's any sort of correlations there as well. Because at the moment it's all a little bit anecdotal.
Right. And of course, anecdotal evidence is both the blessing and the downfall of a Facebook forum. You know, you get a lot of people coming in telling you stories, so you get to know what the themes are, you know what the most commonly asked questions are, but you have no idea of, you know, how does that add up in real numbers? Are we just seeing a tiny fraction of the population commenting over and over and over on the same kind of things, or is, you know, you never get a good idea of the length, the breadth, and the width of something without data points. And that seems to me the beauty of PeopleWith. Yeah.
That is what it's about, Chrissi.
Yeah.
It's about, and Jane, you refer to it there. It's, you know, we don't know actually what this will show up. And whenever you hear stories, anecdotal stories, you don't know how prominent or prevalent that is, or if it's specific to different cohorts of patients or not, or profiles, or you just can't, there's no way you could remember who them questions all come from and all them stories come from. And what we are trying to do is to enable the consolidation so that we can learn. Not we as in PeopleWith, by the way, but we as a population, a nation, as a global group. There's going to be pieces out there that we will not have thought of, that will just come out of the data, that you go, wow. And Jane, that's where that's going to lead the research of the future, because it'll stoke somebody to a point going, oh, I think this could be, or this could, and the next thing, it leads to that research, but it leads to informed research because it's giving you that pre-work to a real deep study in order to really quantify the effect of something.
So in some cases, it's not just giving you preliminary data, it's giving you the ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what it's about.
I mean, just while you were talking, I was thinking, you know, to what extent are the seasons playing a role? Or, you know, temperature or humidity, or, you know, maybe what if we started seeing interesting variations in, you know, the weather in where people, I'm just pulling ideas out of thin air, but as you say, it might be the strangest thing that we hadn't thought of that might be playing a role.
It could be environment. It could be that you're beside an area where there's a lot more pollution. It could be that you're living in a town, or it could be a multitude of things. But the PeopleWith app is capturing all of that. You don't have to put in, but it's going to capture the environment. It's like if I go into the application myself and I start tracking myself, and I track myself today, it'll pick up the environment as into where this was tracked, as in I've tracked it here. What we're actually seeing is people with arthritis, that their pain is reduced significantly, but we know this anyway, but their pain is reduced significantly when they go to a dry, warm environment in comparison to a wet environment. Now, this is common knowledge, but we're seeing this now in the data. But these are the sorts of things that you're going to pull out, Chrissi. So that's exactly, thanks for bringing that to my mind, but that's exactly what we're going to be able to do. There's going to be something that we have not thought of, but it'll become evident once you capture the data. This is the depth of intelligence that this can give to inform, is what this is all about.
Right. Just to backtrack a tiny bit, I was asking you about smell training and whether people could use that. I know you have a term, you have symptoms, and then you have kind of factors, or I don't know what the word is that you use. Is that
Well,
the word you use?
lifestyle supplements.
Right,
There's also going to be things like, you know, whenever you talk about lifestyle, we can put in things like interventions, non-pharmaceutical interventions, of which that would be a non-pharmaceutical intervention.
right,
So some people would go towards treatments all of the time, and then other people would go towards non-pharmaceutical interventions, and other people do a mix of both, and so on and so forth. But it's enabling the holistic presentation of inputs that
right.
deliver whatever output.
So for instance, it would be very helpful to know if people in our group might also take note of whether or not they use nasal rinsing, whether they're smell training, whether they're doing exercise. We seem to find that people who do sort of cardio type exercise, that immediately after that, they report better levels of smell.
Mm-hmm.
So those kind of things would be fascinating
Yeah.
to know.
But we have a lot of these things in the plan. Obviously, this platform was due for release in 2022, folks. But just to let you know that we were asked to fast track it as a result of the current needs for people to understand and support their health a wee bit better, and to be able to share their information with their doctors. So we were doing a piece of work with menopause last year. And I keep forgetting, and you know, whenever I say last year, 2020, obviously. And whilst we were doing that project, we were then requested to release this into a greater population because the people were getting so much value from it. And we were just using this as an initial entry to refine, make better, add in all of the extra things. And then we were launching this in 2022. But we went early because of the current needs, and we're glad we did, actually, because the amount of feedback that we're getting now from people who are getting a bit of reassurance from this resource and a bit of support from it has been fantastic and phenomenal, and we're glad we have moved early.
Fantastic, fantastic. Right, Sarah, where are we on the question?
Yes, I was just going to say there's an interesting question here, which is kind of for Mark and probably a little bit for Jane as well, because it looks at the nature of research, and it's about data validity, and how can we be sure that the information that people are putting into PeopleWith is good information?
Well, you can only assume that everybody's interpreting their health as they interpret their health, but you never take a single data point and create a story around it. So we would be cutting the data numerous different ways through embedded algorithms within the platform, so that whenever we're telling the story, we're not just taking single points, we're taking a consolidation of information that is cut numerous ways, and the algorithms will be running thousands upon thousands upon thousands of time to consolidate the information to build out the story.
Thank you. Jane, that's pretty much what happens when you're looking at research data that's pulled from other studies. Is that correct?
Yes, that's true. And if there's anybody there that's, you know, malingering or, you know, putting in stupid answers, they'll show up as outliers. All the algorithms will be programmed to spot real outliers. So, yeah.
Thank you. And there's another question, Mark, which is around how does the app capture the causes of a particular symptom? And I don't think it does. It is about people recording their symptoms rather than their medical history. Is that correct?
Well, no, you can capture your diagnosis as well. So say, for example, you haven't got a diagnosis and you're just capturing your symptoms, and you want to record your symptoms so that whenever you go into your doctor, that there's a reflection of what is happening with you. At the point then of them looking at the symptoms, the doctor then will do investigations as a result and come to a point of diagnosis. Whenever you've then got your diagnosis, you can then add in your diagnosis, and we have so many diagnoses in there, if the truth be told, because that's, and you don't know what causes what symptom, because symptoms can run from one condition to the other. Do you know what I mean? But are not specific to a single condition. So the doctor will be telling you what your diagnosis is. We will not be assuming to know, or will the people with application will never inform you or make an assumption on your diagnosis. It has to be something that your doctor will be giving you. If you have a diagnosis already, and we have numerous people on this at the minute who are Parkinson's patients. So this is people with Parkinson's, but they just don't start tracking on the point of them just getting Parkinson's. If you understand, they could have Parkinson's for 4 years previous, 5 years, 10 years, whatever the case may be. But they can go into the application and they can go in and create a date and time as to the point of their diagnosis. Now, they'll have no data with respect to their symptom presentation up to the point in time that they start tracking their symptoms, but you can even go back in there and track your medications if you're on medications, when you were started on the medications, if you have that at hand. It's not important for you to do so, but the way we talk to people, whenever we are talking to people and trying to entice them and give them the opportunity to be getting involved in this, like we just say, look, it's from the here and now. You know, if we had have tracked Parkinson's for the last 10 years, how much intelligence would we have for future Parkinson's patients? And what we're saying to people, like, if you start tracking today, the patient 2 years time, 3 years time, you know, that has your presentation, has your profile, they will be able to go into this in 2 or 3 years time, and they'll be able to access all of this intelligence that will maybe support them to get better treatment outcomes.
And I think it's important that you're talking years, because I think to get the most value out of this, particularly for parosmia, anosmia, we will need data that does span the whole length of the problem, the length of the disease, and this can be years. So we would really encourage people to keep tracking, even when they think they're sort of almost better. You know, it's really important to, even if it's once a month, once every 2 months, once you're feeling you're almost there, just keep going so we can sort of track you all the way, because we would like to answer the question, you know, how long does it last?
And if I can just add to what Jane said, for anyone out there who is going to download the app and start using it, because fluctuations are such a problem, and fluctuations doesn't just mean losing the sense of smell, but of course then the sense of smell comes back. And very often people will think as it comes back, yay, I'm recovered, and then they'll say, you know, I don't need this anymore, and then they might find a week down the road that, oh, there's another fluctuation. So I think important to follow through that. I see there's a very interesting question in the feed now. Sarah?
Yes, this is about the symptoms. There are several different ways of describing your symptom, and they seem to be listed in the app. So, for example, lost or changed sense of smell, and lack of sense of smell, or decrease in my sense of smell. And the question is, should I add them all, or will the app know that they're similar and then consolidate them?
What we would recommend when we get asked this question from patients, so we would have had 1 or 2 of them in, and then somebody requested for a third one, and then we went to a medical expert, and then we brought in the third one. But when we talk to our medical experts, they would say to us, right, so if you speak to a patient or somebody who wants to get information on this, if they want to just record this on one of them, can they pick the one that best reflects how they feel impaired, because that's how they're going to interpret it. So, you know, if you're going in there, you're to track that 3 different ways, and it's just a similar thing for you. How do you interpret that yourself is what we would recommend as into what you would select in order to track.
Okay. Right. If I could
out.
Sorry, Jane?
The data for those 3 different sort of aspects of whatever it is, smell loss, are recorded separately. They're not actually combined.
No, I know, but Jane, what I'm saying is that it's that individual's interpretation of it. If they think that they have only one symptom, how do they interpret what that symptom is, and does that description best reflect how they're feeling? That's what I'm saying. So I know the three of them are different, and that's why we have the three of them in there. But for a patient that's gone in there to want to track a single symptom, we would be recommending they track, because it's not only with this condition, there's multiple conditions out there where you have different ways of recording what the symptom looks like.
And you could always combine them in the data analysis anyway.
Of course, of course. And Jane, like whenever we'll be sharing this data with you, whenever you want to see it, we can consult, we'll do this as you wish to see it. So with your request, we'll take your direction and your steer on it because of the experience that you have with respect to this impairment and how it affects different people and how it needs to be reflected in the data.
Good.
So I've got two questions have occurred to me while you've been speaking. How much time has to go by in order to accumulate a meaningful body of information that can be looked at with any kind of, to get any sort of real idea? I'm sure Jane and Mark, you each have an answer to that. What do you think, Mark? And then we'll hear from Jane.
Well, I don't think it's length of time. I think it can be numbers. So you could have a load of numbers for a month, or you could have small numbers for 3 years, and the data sets that it's going to actually create are completely different. And you have got to interpret them different as a result of the mass of data and the length of time that it's presented.
Okay. And Jane?
I just think I would agree with Mark there.
Yeah.
It's a little bit how long is a piece of string as well. Certainly the more the better. And given there's so many variations on a theme, as it were, we're going to need quite a lot of data over quite a long time period to start to tease things out. But Mark's got more experience already from looking at these sort of trends, so he'll have more of an idea of what sort of numbers are required. I don't at the moment.
Jane, can I ask a question about the research process? Because I think one of the fabulous things that could come out of PeopleWith is there'll be some clues or some hunches that we can start to develop. So when you spot something, I don't know, say it's people can smell better standing on their head, how do you then go about looking into that in more depth?
Well, we do a controlled study. We'd recruit people as randomly as possible. You'd recruit the control group, and we'd recruit as widely as possible. You generate a hypothesis, you find some funding to help you do the study, and go from there. It'll all require ethics, whereas the advantage of this one is that, with the PeopleWith app, it's your own personal data, nobody sees it. But with a larger study, we have to go through the whole ethics process because we will be looking at individual data, and we have to at least tell you what we're going to do with it and what we might use it for and where it's going to be stored and all those things. But
and Sarah, also to answer your question, I mean, when Jane and I work together, of course, I've been helping her with the parosmia research. I'm before lockdown happened, I would be in the lab when people came to be tested and so on. But very often, if Jane and I are sitting there and we're talking and there's been an observation out of the Facebook group or something, we'll just say, well, let's try it out, and then we'll go to our magic piece of machinery, or it's not my magic piece of machinery, it's Jane's. And we'll have a go and we'll see what happens. And that's, that's also a wonderful way for new things to come to light. So.
Great. There is a very important question here, actually, and it is about the app and downloading it. Where do you get it? Is there a cost to it?
Well, it's free because we're all about creating value here, and it will remain free, and it will remain ad free as well. So this is built as a resource for you. You can access it on the App Store if you have an iOS or an Apple device, or alternatively, you can access on Google Play if you have an Android. Now, it's not going to cover every single Android phone that's out there because there's so many of them. And with iOS, whenever you go in to the App Store, it'll inform you if your device is suitable for the application, and it'll be the same for Android. But yeah, that's where you would get it. If you have an iPad, you can also download it on an iPad, as well as anywhere you can download apps.
Right.
Great.
And many thanks to Rob, who I can see has been in the Q&A panel, putting in all that vital information. And of course, in the coming weeks, we'll be talking about PeopleWith in the AbScent network, as well as in the Facebook group. So, you know, if you don't have a pencil right now, or you're not somewhere where you can click the link, there will be plenty of opportunity to do that.
Yeah. We also have a page with more information just about the PeopleWith project on our website. So that's abscent.org/resources/PeopleWith. So there's a little bit more and some links from there too.
Good.
Can you just inform them as well of the code that allows us to consolidate the intelligence? So is it AbScent 21 is the code, I think, but if they just put that in as well, that makes it much easier for us to consolidate the intelligence with respect to the group. That will not exclude any of the people who don't have put in the code, because we will just track on all of the symptoms, and I'll speak with Jane about that, but all of the symptoms. So we'll be bringing in our cohort of patients that are already in there and tracking already, and we'll consolidate and share that as well.
Right, right. That sounds like a great, I wasn't aware of that with the code. I think that's a great idea. And I see Aidan has made the same comment. That's seems like a really good idea.
Yeah, and the code is AbScent 21.
AbScent 21. Excellent. Excellent. Good. Right. We're sort of getting, as we approach the end, and I know that at the end there are always sometimes a few more questions, but Mark, I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about the story of PeopleWith and COVID-19. I know you're working with some other groups. How long have you been working with them, and how fruitful has that collaboration been so far for what we know about COVID-19?
We're finding out an awful lot, but I can't share that with you because I haven't interrogated it enough to share that information with you now, here and now. But we have, what we're noting is that there's a lot of patients that originally presented with COVID, and they're now getting an extension to the presentation of their symptoms, and they're having what would be regarded now as long haul COVID, and they're continuing to track their symptoms. And just to give you a reflection of some of the values that this is creating, like there was 1 week there where 800 patients downloaded the app from the App Store or Google Play, and they started tracking their symptoms, and inside maybe 15 days, they had captured between 62 and 67,000 data points on their symptoms.
Wow.
And what we're finding is, like, on average, patients with COVID are presenting with a range of between maybe 7 and 11 symptoms. And we're starting to see that it's common, like it's multi organs, shall we say. So could be respiratory predominantly in some patients, and other patients it can be gastric, and other patients it can be neurological. So it's just not the same for everybody. and it's not the same for everybody with the same profile. Even you could have people with the same profiles with a different reflection of their symptomologies as dictated by some of their past history with respect to their health and so on and so forth. And what we're seeing with respect to even long COVID is now we have quite a few children. So long COVID kids are doing a project, something similar to yourself. And we're capturing a lot of intelligence to support them to increase the awareness of what long COVID kids is. So initially, one of the projects that we're looking to work towards moving forward is even, managing the vaccinations and looking at the vaccinations, looking at how the vaccinations are affecting people and affecting people as a positive outcome. Is it preventing COVID in all of the variants? We're getting involved with projects where we're tracking antibodies, the creation of antibodies. We're tracking the transmission of COVID post-vaccine. Are you still able to transmit? Guys, the amount of stuff that we're doing here at the minute, for me it would overwhelm. It's overwhelming me. And I'm involved in this. Like my first meeting this morning started at 7:30 this morning, and I'm now here at 9 o'clock tonight, still in the office. So but this is for the greater good. This is so we can capture the intelligence to support the better outcomes for more and more people, and despite the variance of your health profile. And there's a piece on the application as well, and I think I need to make a wee bit about this, but you can go into your application, and once you've captured your intelligence, and you can go in and create a report that you can effectively then share with your doctor without leaving the house. And that can be important for people who have got long-term conditions where they need a reassurance. Like one of the fallouts of a pandemic such as this, or a national emergency such as this, is people with long-term conditions tend to get neglected because of the acute phase of the management of the emergency. And it's important for these people maybe to start tracking like their Crohn's, their colitis, their inflammatory bowel disease, their arthritis, prostate problem, all of these things that they're going to be come back to their doctor with in 6 months' time. But how do you get a reassurance whenever you know the waiting list that's going to develop now moving forward for people to reaccess care? But if you can capture that intelligence and generate the report, it'll enable you to share that with your doctors, and for the doctor to give you a reassurance over the phone, everything's going well, or I'll make a wee change here that will maybe get rid of this, or I'll do this, or I'll do this. But it's just to give you more support as a patient that just needs a wee bit more reassurance around your health.
Right. Thank you. Thank you for that. I think we can slowly start to wind up. I would just, Sarah, would you like to sort of give everyone a final overview of the AbScent network and a final few words on this subject tonight?
Well, yeah, I just think that everything is interconnected, and I think this is what's really come out of what Mark's been saying tonight, is that by sharing these experiences and using platforms like PeopleWith, like the network, that we can really work together to uncover some new information and find some answers and really move things forward. So it's a very powerful position to be in, that we can bring together all these experiences, but we can't do it without the people who are experiencing this. So
right.
Thank you to everybody who can give some time to help with these projects.
Yep, that's right. And as a part of our model as a patient support group is that we want to really create that virtuous circle of patients submitting their stories, working together with researchers learning more about the condition, feeding that back into the group, letting patients know that they're an important part of this cycle, this virtuous cycle of information exchange. So very much looking forward to working with you, Mark, on this as we move forward. And to anybody in the audience, it's time to download the PeopleWith app and watch this space because we'll be talking about it more in the future. So thank you, Jane, for being with us tonight, and Sarah, thank you, but most of all, Mark and Rob, who I know is in the background from PeopleWith. Thank you both for being with us tonight, and let's see what we can find out. So thank you, everyone. Thanks very much for joining us. Good night.